history is history. Look at today what's happening there. Look what the future will bring. Most people don't think about it. They believe what's here today. I always say there are two sides to any story. You hear only one, and most people believe only one.
Guten Tag, welcome to another edition of Klovekorn the Relic Hunter. In the past few episodes I've been focusing very much my attention on World War II areas of interest within Germany. But today we're 14,500 kilometres south of Germany in South Australia. And the capital city of South Australia, of course, is Adelaide. What a lot of people don't realise is that it's named after a German queen. And there are significant German and Prussian influences in the free colony of South Australia. Right now, I'm walking in the beautiful valleys and hills and landscapes of Lorbetal, or the Valley of Praise. And this is the site where we are going to have an interview with quite a fantastic man, aged 97, born in 1920, and his name is Erich Warmer. Also, Herr Erich Warmer.
Yes.
Thank you for your time, and it's an immense honor to be in your presence, and thank you for sharing your life story with me this evening.
Oh, I'm flabbergasted.
Can we start with you explaining a little bit about where you were born, perhaps when you were born, and stating your full name as you would in German?
I was born on the 25th of January 1920 in Neuendorf, Kreis Löwenberg in Schlesien, Niederschlesien. That's about 40 kilometers from Görlitz. That's today's border between Germany and Poland. Yeah. I went to school when I was 5 years and 2 months. Actually, I went to school 1 year earlier, because my parents were very busy, farmer. My father was a leading personality. He was a breeder, and he was a judge in animals. We had Rotbundes Niederungsvieh, or here it's Red Friesians. Yeah.
And I assume in this area German was spoken at that time?
Germany, that area was established by German people in 1220. 750 years history, German history. And after the war, Stalin said that was an old Polish or Slavish country, because in the capital of Linitz there was the Piasten, that's a Polish, Slavish aristocratic family. Yeah. They had that land, but there was no populations here. And they asked the Germans to come in, and they came in 1220. I got books here, and then like our town Löwenberg, there's the administration building, the Rathaus, that had celebrated 750 in 1970 or some 75 or something, I think. Yeah.
Now you mentioned the war. Did you have involvement in World War II when it broke out in 1939?
1939, I was home at that time. Mm-hmm. And I was called up in October 1940, a year later, because I was on farm. We were kept back because farming was important. Yeah.
Okay. And as what did you enter the Wehrmacht? Which unit or division or what area?
I was called up. There was a unit in Prague. Prague was occupied by Germany by that time. That was a Beobachtungsbatterie, that means observing battery. And I came there because I had a driver's license. And that was my lucky turn. When my father in 36, he bought a car. And when I was 18 in 38, I made my driver's license. And so I came to there. But I had driven a car about 4 or 5 times. So when I came in there, I had to have driving school again. Yeah.
But that was considered a special skill in
Oh
those
yes,
days.
we had heavy wheels
Okay.
there. Yeah.
And in the Beobachtungsabteilung, was this in what area? What were you watching? What was the purpose of the
The
Abteilung?
purpose was we had 2 systems. One was light, the other one was sound. That's detecting enemy artillery. Light was to Schirm Fenro, well, complicated in specific winkles and so with the so on, and they could they cut on some enemy cannon, what they said, the fire of it, and they cut it on and from 4 different places.
Are you talking about enemy artillery? Is that what you're talking
Enemy
about?
artillery, that's what we were after.
Okay, so this is like an anti-artillery unit
That's right.
sent out to
detect
where the enemy artillery
Yes,
is, which
and
probably was moving constantly, right? Every
yes,
4 or 5 barrages, it was
but
probably
once we had one, then the battery house got in touch with the artillery commander, and he got one battery, 10 centimeter howitzer or 15 howitzer, and then there's the first 2 shots to get your target, and then they put 20, 30, 40 rounds on it. That was our job.
So when
We had in the same system there was also a balloon company. Yeah? We had once in Russia, we had balloons there. It got shot down by the Russians.
a balloon, like a zeppelin or
Yeah,
a
that's
balloon?
They're
Or-
on a balloon when you go up
Okay.
and it's in the basket like they go here from the Rosa.
So when you had found an enemy position, you would attack that through the assistance of the Luftwaffe, or and give the coordinates, and then they would attack that position.
Yes.
Okay. So were you very much at the front itself, or were you in positions ahead of the front, or?
The outpost of observing points, there were 4 in each system. They were right behind the front line.
Okay.
Sometimes depends what the area is, half a kilometer or kilometer, sometimes. And the Auswärtsstelle was how we called it, the center. They were about 2-3 kilometers behind.
And tell me, what was it like? This is for the Wehrmacht, I assume.
Yes.
Yes. So what was it like being a member of the Wehrmacht? Were you close comrades with your fellow soldiers? What was the day-to-day like? Did you speak to them? Did you play cards?
Oh,
Did you what was life like? What can you remember
Like
from
normal
those
life,
days?
and you go in the caserne and you have your service there, and then you go together out or something like that.
This
But
is
then-
during the war period.
No, the war period. When we were together, well, in our unit, because we were that much separated in combat or something like that, so we were not that close like in the infantry or artillery, where the whole unit stays together. That was a little bit different. I can't recall many things. I don't know even how many people we lost or something.
Last time we spoke, you mentioned that you had received some war medals and honours for your duty to the Vaterland, as we say in Germany, particularly at that time.
I shouldn't have mentioned that.
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that. And you are the recipient of Eisernes Kreuz Zweite Klasse, or the Iron Cross in the 2nd class.
Second class.
What did you receive that for? Because usually that's given for
Yes.
leadership
Well,
or bravery in battle.
We had heavy fighting in the Ukraine, and one vehicle was in the front line and came back and was hit by a rocket. And the vehicle was, nobody knew what's happening actually.
This is a Wehrmacht vehicle?
Wehrmacht vehicle,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, and I was driving as the chef of the unit at that time. And I said I knew the area, I knew the maps, I knew what's going on there. And he knew I was in the youth organization, I was so on there. And so he gave me order at 10 o'clock at night with the vehicle zone and retrieve the vehicle. So when we went after 10 o'clock in the darkness, we went ahead to the rollbahn to the front, and when we came out of the forest, it was broken forest there. Yeah? There were fields, soldiers living on the side there, and they stopped us, and they asked, "Where are you going?" And I told them, "So and so, yeah, we're going, supposed to get the vehicle and so on." And he told me, "I got to say, if we pull back, there's nothing in front of us anymore."
What do you mean in terms of it's just a devastated area?
No. Our front line has pulled back. So there was nothing from our Wehrmacht in front of that anymore. So there's no man's land.
So he was saying, good luck. If you go there, you're a dead man, basically.
So
yeah.
I decided, because he gave me the order, yes, I decided, well, they wouldn't have told the Russians that they go back. And 10 o'clock is early in the evening, and as I saw it, there was at least 2 or 3 kilometers behind what the front was before. So I decided to go in. Okay? And when we came there, that vehicle had a rocket. You know the Russian rockets, they call them Stalin Orgel.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard that?
Yes, I have.
Yes. A rocket right on the bonnet. It was totally destroyed. So we couldn't retrieve the vehicle, but we saved the equipment.
So what sort of vehicle was it? Because it must have been an important
that's
vehicle.
a Kfz 16, that's a normal thing.
Okay.
Kfz 16, yes.
Was there any important papers in the vehicle? Was there anything of significance within the vehicle? Why did the vehicle need to be retrieved?
Because you like to keep the vehicle as long as possible, yeah? I mean, if one is lost, it's lost, but...
so what year was this, roughly? What year was this? Was this in 41?
This is 43.
43. So we're talking more towards the end of the war, when it's very important to maintain any infrastructure that one has at the Wehrmacht, because...
That was in September 43, something like that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very interesting, because it goes to show that there's a limited supply of vehicles, tanks, rifles.
Exactly.
And so they said, look, this vehicle could be very important, go get it.
That was after Stalingrad. You remember Stalingrad? I was at that when Stalingrad was, our division was in the center, near Kursk. And because we belonged to a tank division.
Okay.
17th Tank Division. And the division was called up straight away because Stalin was enclosed by the Russians.
So you were in the 6th Army Corps?
No, my brother was there.
Okay.
We were the 2nd Tank Army when we went into Russia. So anyway, that vehicle we had it only a short time. When shortly after Stalingrad, we got new vehicles, quite a few new ones, yeah? And it was one of them we wanted to rescue, yeah? But it was destroyed, yeah.
Well, there was a very formidable tank battle in Kursk. Were you part of that?
No, not there. No, there were tank battles here around, but we were not in Turkey. I was just overnight getting in to retrieve the vehicle. And my boss, when I came back, he didn't know, he didn't realize that. He didn't realize, otherwise he wouldn't have sent us in here.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you go to attempt to retrieve the vehicle, you go into no man's land, you realize you can't do it. You said you recovered some equipment. What equipment did you recover?
You got the light, they got those big, we call it Scherenfender, big overhead, and with the proper angles.
Oh, this is the actual equipment you were using in your Beobachtungsabteilung. This is not just some.
In the front way.
This has specialist equipment in it.
And the other one was sound microphones. They took the sound from everything. Yeah?
So this was critical equipment for the Beobachtungsabteilung.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we saved that. Yeah.
Do you think that the Russians had this sort of equipment at their disposal, or were the Germans ahead in this area?
Well, I can't say that.
It's very hard to say.
But as my son said, the Americans had that.
Yeah, okay. And so you come back to your post, and how did you get to be a recipient of the Eisernes Kreuz Zweite Klasse? How did that work?
I had no idea. One day it came and put it on.
Okay. And how did you feel? You must have felt very proud and honored by that.
I never thought about it. No. I took it home, I left it at home. Okay. I had only on the little, you know, on the brass
okay.
color and so. Yeah. There was a Russian medal I had,
yes.
and Iron Cross there.
So from memory, the Iron Cross second class comes with a ribbon, and is often put in the second buttonhole. Without the medal, it's just tucked behind.
Yeah, somehow we had where the medal stayed like the Americans have. You can see them there, and had the colors on there.
Okay. And you
have
had
a picture here somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you fare with the rest of the war effort? I mean, up to 1945, did you see any other battles? How did you survive this difficult period?
Well, actually, until Bessarabien, that was in early 44. That's where we had actually the last engagement. We were not engaged all the time because of the moving front. The points were set and you have to move and so on. Yeah. But after that, our unit was practically depleted. We were not new vehicles and nothing else. We were on the run down. We were not used, we were not fighters. And the moving war, we were pushed from one side to the other one. Until in 44, we were in Romania down there. And in October 44, I got leave. My parents, because my father was very sick at that time, I got leave for harvesting, potato harvesting.
That's incredible.
And I went, and we were in Hermannsburg or something, not Hermannsburg, there's a German villages down in Romania, yeah, in Siebenbürgen and so on, yeah. And I went there, and the Russian moved already through Bucharest up the Donau to what is the town? So I couldn't go straight through. I had to go around, and there was just a Red Cross train in the town, but we couldn't go. We are not allowed in the Red Cross train. But they let us sit on the platforms outside. There was 1.5 days on the platform, and that was in October, and I caught a cold there. Okay. When I came to Vienna, I had to the clinic process. When you came from the east, you had to go to the clinic with all the lights and everything.
Okay.
You were stripped, you go bath, everything goes in the hot and powder and anything, and then you had a different transport home.
You were born 1920.
Yes.
Hitler has the Machtergreifung in 1933. So you would have been 13 years old.
Yes.
So you would have, at some point in that time, you would have gone to the Hitler Youth or to the Jungvolk.
Yes, at the Jungvolk. I was a Jungvolk. Well, I started in 1933. I went to the Hitler Jugend, but I was too young. They put me back in the Jungvolk, 10 to 14.
Okay. And what are your memories of that time?
Well, we did the same what the scouts doing. We're marching and singing, and Saturday was Tuesday. At 8 o'clock we went, and we had in one village, the big farm. They gave us a room there, Every Saturday we went there, we cleaned it out, and we singing, we cooking lunch and so on, and in the afternoon went home again. Yeah?
So you said you used to sing.
Sing, yes.
So did you sing Erika? Is that one of the songs? Or Westerwald? Westerwald?
That many German songs I could hear on the laptop.
Oh, okay. So which songs did you sing? Westerwald?
Yes, yes.
Erika?
Yes.
What else?
Oh, then later on came, no, that comes in after the war, Billy Marlene. That was that one is songs.
Wacht am Rhein? Things like that?
Wild kennt der Rauschen durch die Nacht.
Okay.
You know that?
Yeah, I know it, yeah.
That's from, who was, the book was between two sides, zwischen zwei Welten.
Yeah.
Who was that? I don't know that.
Did you, now, some aspects of the Third Reich attempted to reintroduce the old German religion, and in some of the Hitler Youth camps they taught runes or Runen. Did you ever learn anything like that? You weren't exposed to that in your area? Okay.
That must be later or something, I don't know.
Did you ever have any exposure to the Reichsarbeitsdienst or the RAD? No involvement there.
No, I was just they were farming, and I was 1 year in home. I was called up then.
Were you, or did you know any party members?
Oh yeah, well, there were enough party members there.
Did you join the party, or you didn't join the
no,
party?
I didn't join
or
the
your
party.
father maybe, or something
no,
like that? No,
we had he was the Bürgermeister afterwards, or not the Bürgermeister, for the district. Yeah? He was a party man. He came one day. He wanted to pursue my father. My father was, what do you say? He was a member of the Deutsche National Party.
Mm-hmm.
Conservative. Yeah? No, he wouldn't join it, and I had to join the army, so I had nothing to do with the party. Yeah?
Okay. And at that time, how did people feel about party members? Were they mistrusted? Were they? How were they thought of?
When they came, they created work.
Mm-hmm.
They printed money. They stopped the repatriation payments to the other ones and so on. Yeah? And the people were happy. They had what do you call it now from the union? They had 2 ships. They sent workers overseas, but they never let them to England. England didn't let them in. They went to Norway, to Sweden, the Gustloff. If you heard about that?
Yes. Yes. But hang on. When you say they sent people all over the place, which people did they send?
Workers.
Workers.
Workers. Yes.
Okay. What sort of workers?
Anything you had something done in older workers and so on. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that the German Reich was finding contracts and then sending workers to other places to complete the contracts?
No contracts. That was holidays.
Oh, so Kraft durch Freude, what you're talking about? Kraft durch Freude,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
So this is the Kraft durch Freude movement,
yes,
where the workers were rewarded for all of their labour.
Exactly.
Now, I've been, for example, to the Kraft durch Freude hotel in the island of Rügen, which is an enormous hotel built right on the beaches,
yes,
and it had the capacity to house 20,000 workers. And it's now in ruins, of course.
Yes.
So quite incredible, because the working classes never, prior to that point, had the money or the opportunity to go on holiday.
Yeah.
And through the system, they suddenly they were rewarded for their labours.
That's right.
You talk about the Gustloff. What do you know about the Gustloff? Because there are reports it was sunk as a hospital ship by the Russians.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was from Danzig. Went from Danzig to Stettin, and then it was caught by the Russians. Yes, yes, I know that. Yes.
How was that news? How did that news impact you and other Germans at the time?
Look, in the army, we hardly didn't get any news. We nearly didn't know what's going on really.
I mean, this is, I believe, the worst maritime disaster ever even
Yes.
greater than the Titanic. It
Yes.
was, I believe, it had a horizontal black stripe, which very clearly marked it as a hospital ship.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
everybody knew it was a hospital ship. It started out its life as a KDF ship, but it became a hospital ship.
That's the same with Dresden. You know Dresden?
Yes, yeah.
Was declared open town, and they bombed it. And the general was honored by the Queen afterwards. Even in England, people were against that.
We come to a more difficult subject, and that is the subject of the Holocaust.
Yes.
Without going into the detail at this stage, as a German soldier fighting on the front lines, did you hear anything
No,
about that?
not at all.
Was there any inkling that
No.
anything was happening to the Jewish population?
The only thing we probably when you were on leave that heard that somebody was got picked up or something.
Yeah, okay. And what was the attitude of the normal German soldier towards other races? Now, I've done some research. I found that the Wehrmacht had Chinese soldiers, they had Serbian, Croatian soldiers, English soldiers, Russian soldiers, African soldiers even, and many Muslim soldiers were actually part of the Wehrmacht, and some of them even were recipients of the Iron Cross. How did the normal, average German soldier feel towards other races?
Well, we nearly didn't have any contact with these people.
But did you prejudice them, or did you, I don't know,
I don't
feel
even know
animosity
that.
towards
I didn't
them?
even know that.
Okay.
I mean, you got told only what you have to know.
Okay. So would you accept a person of another race or creed or religion into your areas? Would you accept them, or would you not want them to be part of your group?
Well, look, it depends on the people, how they are. I mean, normally they're ordinary people like me and you.
Yeah.
And
so it depends on their values, that's what you're
yes,
saying. If they have
exactly.
good values,
Yes.
not a problem.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's based on merit, essentially.
That's right, that's right.
When you heard of the Holocaust, how did you feel about it?
I didn't even know till after the war I had a relations, and he was in a neighbor district, and there was a big farm, and they were Jews. And after the war, and I met them in West Germany, and he told me that they picked him up and he had to look after the farm there. So I never heard about that before.
So hang on, these are German Jews, or Jews from Schlesien that you're talking about? These were Jews from your area?
He was from Schlesien.
And 1.1, if not more, German soldiers died as prisoners of war in the Russian prisoner of war camp. That's a lot of people to die. And many of them had no toilets, had no food, had no medical aid. They were simply put in a huge area with a big fence, and they were starved to death, essentially, or of dysentery or other, This is not in the history books. Nobody learns that.
No.
It is covered up, essentially.
I was in the army, and after the war, I didn't hear anything. I didn't even know what's happened to my family. The last time, as I said, I was home in December '44. When I left, I had no idea that the Russians were there 8 weeks later, on the 16th of February. The village was evacuated, and 2 days later the Russians were there. When I was home, I left home, the front was deep in Poland, about 300 kilometers away. Nobody saw anything. And they started the last offensive, or whatever you call it, on the 9th of January, I think it was. And they used the same brutal force that we used when we went in Russia. Concentrated force.
Schwerpunktprinzip.
Through like that. They broke through before the Germans could put a new line up. That was on the order. They tried in Silesia and Pommern. They tried to. That's where the heavy fighting was afterwards.
Hitler said that one of the reasons why he wanted or needed to fight Russia is because he said, if we don't fight them, they are going to take us. And that was one of his justifications. when towards the end of the war the Russians were creeping closer and closer to the German Empire, a lot of Germans were afraid of the Russian onslaught. I think just before the Russians took Berlin, I think on one day alone 5,000 women committed suicide because they wanted to escape from being raped. So what happened to your village when the Russians came through?
The Russians occupied it. There were 3 months in the village. Half of the buildings were destroyed and burnt down, and the rest is, and then the southern side of the village were one minefield, right through. Here were the Russians, and the next village was the German army, and so on. So, but there was no fighting, hardly any. Yes.
Let me just check this thing is still doing its job. Good, excellent. Last question about the war, then I'm going to ask you about Klovekorn. Did you see any active fighting yourself? Was there any sort of moment in this period where you were a soldier where you thought you were going to, die, or was there any really heavy fighting that you remember?
I was not direct in the fighting, but close to it.
Okay.
Close to it. And the worst part was sometimes bombers, fighting bombers, flying. We had a couple of them. When they go over there, you just put your head down and that's it.
Okay.
Look, I always, if you think back, how many bullets are shot and how many get the target. It's with everything, it's good or bad luck. And the best, if you get hit by a bullet, you have a chance to survive. That goes through like that. But the worst is artillery. What do you call it now? Shrapnels.
Yeah.
And I got 2 shrapnels in my left shoulder.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
One I carried for 70 years.
That's
But it's a small one only. Lucky enough, it was only a small caliber.
Well, there's that old German song, nicht jede Kugel trifft das Herz. Yeah. How was the SS seen by the Wehrmacht? Was there a healthy competition? How were they seen?
Well, we knew they were there, and they had the best equipment.
Okay.
And then where they went, there was not much got caught or something. Most of them died there.
There's a myth surrounding the SS that they were the best of the best, that they were the most professional, the most highly trained. Is that myth justified?
Partly, yes, probably. Possibly. I mean, that was the elite troops. Yeah.
So the Wehrmacht soldier would respect an SS officer without question.
They don't know what else could you do.
The war ends. What happens to you? You go back to your village. You try to find your family, and I assume you're shocked.
As I said,
by what's
I was wounded on the 9th of March 45. 2 months before the war finished, because I had 2 shrapnels to the shoulder. They dug one out. There was a deep wound. I had a draining. That was my luck. So I came back. I came back to Prague, and I was about 5 weeks till the end of April. I was in Prague, in the hospital, and I was relieved. And believe it or not, I came in Prague to the unit where I came to was in the same building when I started there. I was there the first day and I walked out on the last day from the building, went out to the Americans to Pilsen.
And how do you go from war-torn Europe to Australia? How did that happen? How did you get to become a Australian or German Australian?
Well, in the first place, I come from Silesia. We couldn't go home. Silesia became Polish, and because we were first in Prague or in Pilsen, and all the Americans as well as the Russians, they had to leave Czechoslovakia within 3 months. So we went to Western Germany, Bavaria. And because we couldn't go home, I was a farmer. Luxembourg requested farmers. Yeah. So I was 1.5 years in Luxembourg. At that time, I never heard a word from home, never heard anything, what was on and so on. I had a girlfriend there in West Germany. Yeah. She tried to get in touch with me till 1946. Then I got a letter from her, and she told me then my father passed away. I saw him the last time when I left home, and they were on the way to West Australia, evacuated, or what do you say it? Displaced.
Okay, it's displaced.
Displaced. Better word for thrown out.
So you hear about Australia how? How does South Australia get into your life?
Well, I was in farming over there, and I was on a dead end. I had a dispute with the farmer, and he gave me notice and so on. And there was an unrealistic future. But a cousin of my wife, they came to Australia the year before. To them, we were awarded for Australia. So we didn't waste any time, made application to the embassy in Bonn, and I saw I think a chap from the embassy or was himself, I don't know, and we were accepted and were booked for the mid-September, but I had still potatoes in, so I rode back. So I came back, the next ship went on the 29th of October, and then everything went in a hurry. I sold everything, and I hardly didn't sell anything. It went that quick, I didn't think about it. And then on the 29th of October, we left Germany.
And you arrived where?
On the 1st of December, we were in Fremantle, on the 6th in Melbourne, on the 9th and the 8th in Sydney.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when do you come to Laubertal?
Yes.
What year did you make it to Laubertal?
In 57.
57.
That's 2 years after. 56, as my first job was in the Commonwealth Railway in West Australia, on the rails. Middle of summer, January, 47, 48 degrees.
Now, you've come to South Australia. You're effectively a displaced war veteran.
That's right.
Did you see or meet other veterans from your area or other German veterans?
After the war, I never had any connection, and everything was, you know how it was Germany, we didn't even have a government. The Allied forces had to run the country. Okay? After 2 years, then they start local government and build up again, and then Adenauer came.
No, well, I'm talking about here in Adelaide. Were there any German veterans in Adelaide? Any Germans that you would meet, or
no,
nothing like that?
I didn't know anybody.
Oh, okay,
No.
That's interesting. The bell in the Lutheran church here is from the National Socialist government.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, you don't know that?
No, I don't know.
So the story is, I'm glad I can tell you something. So the story is that they were looking for a bell in the 1920s,
Yes.
or 30s. They didn't have the money for a church bell here in Klovekorn, and so I have to find out who it was. But one of the senior town's church leaders wrote to Adolf Hitler asking for a bell.
Oh.
And everybody said, you're crazy, he's never going to answer, they don't care about some satellite German village in the middle of nowhere. And sure enough, they received a response saying, the Führer has agreed to making a bell for you.
Ah.
And they sent the bell, and in sometime around 1943, I think it arrived, and then it wasn't let in, because by that stage it was the enemy, and it took an act of parliament to
Well, actually, when I went to school, there was the VDR. Verein für Deutsche im Ausland.
Verein für
Deutschtum im Ausland.
Deutschtum im Ausland. Yes, that is the Verein that brought the bell here.
Yes,
Actually.
VDR. VDA.
Yes, okay. Were you involved with that somehow, or you just knew about it?
No, we just paid in for it and so on, but no other involvement. We learned about it, about the Germans and about Africa and so on, and New Guinea and so on, all those things. Yeah.
So you learned about Germans in
That was-
Ausland while you were in the Wehrmacht in Germany.
Oh, that was in school.
In school already.
School, yes.
So they were trying to say the German Empire is everywhere essentially, and you've got friends and colonists all over the place, Africa and.
You know the German hymn, Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. I mean, that's ridiculous. For us, it means about everything, but they construe it to something we want to hear the world or something. That's ridiculous.
Yes, I think how it's construed now is as though Germany is more important than everything, but I think the way it was meant to be understood was that we love it over everything. It's
Exactly.
slightly different.
Exactly.
It's not saying I'm better than you, it's simply saying
no, not at all.
I love my country more than I love other things.
Exactly.
Is that not how it's meant to be interpreted?
What it means. Yeah.
Interesting that you should raise that.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening a lot. It's part of the anti-German sentiment. It's why the Nomenclature Act of 1917 caused the German place names
Yes.
to be removed. So
Yes, yeah.
Nürnberg became Birdwood, and
Yes, yes. Yes.
Grüntal became
Yes.
Verdun.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
But in 1935, some of them came back again, didn't they? So we were able to save some of that.
1936 on the anniversary. I think.
Yeah. Okay, well I think we ended there for the moment, Erich, and you've got your dinner.
Yes.
All I can say is thank you for letting me talk to you.
I hope I didn't say too much.
And it's a fascinating insight into your life and your service. And
Well,
your,
if I think back,
yeah.
I had a roller coaster in my life.
Yeah.
I had good times, I had bad, I had the worst times. My children don't even notice it. They don't have no idea. They, until last year, till my son found out about the war, the chap, army chap from New Zealand, he took my things to Birdwood, and he told them what it was. And he was flabbergasted. No, he said, that can't be. He never talked about it.
I hope it's still in your son's possession.
Not the Iron Cross. The Iron Cross I left at home.
Yeah.
Who had it? I don't know, probably the Russians when they were there.
Oh, okay. All right. But the uniform, who's got the uniform?
The uniform, yes, I had that.
I think as the years go on, another 50, 60 years, I think World War II and World War I again will be seen through different eyes, I think.
Mm.
So thank you so much for your openness in sharing that experience with us.
Well, yes, I mean, what I told you that has happened,
Yeah.
and so on,
Dann ist
I
etwas.
mean,
Bitte.
I didn't do anything illegal or something, or
No,
contrary or something.
Of course not.
I was a soldier, I did my service, like everybody else, like we talked about it. I said, why did all that happen? But history is history. Look at today what's happening there. Look what the future will bring. Most people don't think about it. They believe what's here today. I always say, there are two sides to any story. You hear only one, and most people believe only one.